Primary ignition.
This is the way.
What is up, all of you Ugnaughts, Jawas, and Zelens, whatever species we got going on in the Mandalorian Season 3 so far? We've had so many. This is Mando Talk. I'm your host, Caleb Keller, and we are back for a spoiler discussion after show of the Mandalorian Chapter 18 titled The Mines of Mandalore. And joining me on this episode is none other than Zach Horvath. Zach, what's up, man? How's it going? And it's so good to have you back on the show.
What up? Yeah, so happy to be here. I'm so happy to be back. Let's go, Mandalorian. He's back. Or I should say they're back, huh?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, like it, dude.
Big time.
So happy to be back. So happy to be on the show, watching it, new content, and I don't want to bury the lead. And it's good. Like, thank God. Like, it's so good.
I
man.
know.
But we'll get there.
I feel like, the premiere episode was kind of split online, honestly. Like, people enjoyed it overall, but there was, definitely some criticisms. And I understood that. But I think this one's more well accepted across the fan base because there are some incredible moments. And, of course, as we're doing our breakdown on this podcast episode, we'll definitely get to it. So we'll digress for right now. But by the way, at the end of this podcast, just like we did last week, by the way, every single Friday, you can expect a new companion podcast wherever you're listening to this right now. I will say YouTube's probably the best place because I'm doing these additional YouTube shorts covering all things Mandalorian Season 3. So regardless of where you're at, though, smash that subscribe button. But anyway, I was trying to say, just like we did last week, we talked to you guys on Twitter and this week also on Discord. I got some feedback from y'all. We're going to talk about your reactions, your thoughts, your opinions, your theories at the back half of this podcast episode. But as we always do, we're going to break it down every single piece, every single part. Me and Zach are going to walk through this thing. So let's not waste any time because we've got a heavy episode to dissect throughout. So let's get it done. Chapter 18, The Mines of Mandalore, was directed by Rachel Morrison, who is best known for being a cinematographer for the following: Mudbound, Fruitvale Station, and Black Panther. Those are three very solid properties there, especially, for me. I love me some Black Panther, but you have any
Fruitvale Station.
Fruitvale Station, okay.
Super dope.
What's your recommendation with that? It great? Awesome?
Yeah. I would say great. Say great. It's at that level. I didn't know that's who this was, to be honest. So that's awesome. All right, cool.
Well, Rachel Morrison, I think you crushed it. And written by Jon Favreau. Not surprised. He's doing them all, I'm assuming. I think actually I've read next week's episode. There's a co-writer involved. So we're going to get some more influence outside of Favreau soon, but we'll keep mentioning that. All right, let's get into it. First things first. First part of the episode, we are back on Tatooine in the midst of Bunta Eve celebrations as Pelimoto completely scams a Rodian to get some extra credits, and Din Djarin finally arrives. Grogu pulls off a nice little Jedi leap, that was fantastic, into Peli's arms before blabbering a good amount to her, which I thought was kind of a tease to the possibilities of him talking for a first time, I might add that. And then Din reveals why he's there, and that's to simply get the replacement IG memory circuit. Of course, that was like half the plot of last week's episode, so that was just a direct continuation. Now, breakdown here. Bunta Eve was an annual holiday and festival celebrated on the desert planet of Tatooine. It honors the rise, and this was news to me. This was just me researching it this week. It honors the rise of Bunta Hestelik Shedru to godhood. Apparently, this dude was a Hutt. Never heard of this guy,
Of course he was.
I've definitely heard of Bunta Eve because young Annie mentions it in The Phantom Menace, but that's why they're doing this whole pod race. They're celebrating Bunta Eve. Now, the decision to have Pelimoto not get a filler for her missing tooth from the Book of Boba Fett absolutely fit perfectly with that character. And I gotta say, and then I'll pass it to you, Zach. I used to have problems with these frequent, quick reliance visit to Tatooine, but I'm kind of to the point now where I recognize that Din Djarin trusts very few people, so I actually kind of accept anytime that we are in a bind, he may go visit Pelimoto's shop, and that's really the big thing that I really want to talk to you about here. Going back to Tatooine, how did we feel about just kind of this initial quick check-in back at Pelimoto's?
So for me, if you don't know who I love Star Wars, but I am not a like avid watch everything guy. Like I've watched all the shows in terms of live action. Haven't really seen animated. I've seen Bad Batch season 1. Haven't even seen season 2. I am gonna watch it though. I will say I'm
It's
gonna watch
picking
it.
up. It's picking
Y-
up for sure. You'll definitely want
I'm
to check it out.
I'm definitely I think I'm gonna binge it. I'll do the whole wait to the end and watch the whole thing. But I say all that to say when we opened up, I I didn't even know if it was Tatooine. I gotta be honest with you. I was just
Okay.
like, oh, okay. Where are we? And then I saw like pod racing going on. I'm like, okay, this looks familiar. And then I see Pelimoto.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh gosh, here we go, her again. But it was short, it was quick, and I completely agree with you
Mm-hmm.
that I was getting kind of sick of like, why are we always going back to this freaking lady? But it is exactly what you said. Like she has come through time and time again for him, and he does not trust a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
especially with things like this. First of all, I mean, he used to hate droids. He still kind of hates them. So,
100%.
like, yeah, like it's kind of nice to go back there. It's a familiar face. It was short. It was sweet. We got the Grogu moment of, oh wow, the fireworks and stuff. Very
Oh, that
cool.
was great.
And Grogu 100% said a word that he 100%
You
talked
think
right there.
so? You think
Yes.
so?
Yeah.
Man, I
And
thought it was
so,
still blabbering.
no, I think the whole episode today is to tell us that number one, yes, he has trained with Luke more than we thought.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, he is older than we think because, yes, he's now walking around and flipping around and talking and like he's becoming his own character in that sense. And I freaking loved it so much. But
Oh,
we'll see
yeah,
more of that coming up.
for sure.
The Tatooine thing, it's fine. Whatever.
Okay,
That's cool.
yeah, and again, I'm like that too. Like I'm on board now. It just kind of lines up with the character Din Djarin for sure.
Yeah.
Well, continuing on here, Pelly doesn't have the part he needs and offers up the infamous R5 astromech droid instead. But Din is not keen to the idea initially, since he needs a droid for spelunking. I bolded that word here in our notes. I never heard of that word, but I absolutely love it. Like
Oh,
that's
it's a great
probably gonna
word.
make the tweet that I send, promote the podcast on
It's a
spelunking
great
this
word.
week or something. I don't know. Anyway, he needs a droid that has those capabilities to test Mandalore's atmosphere ahead of him. R5 still acts scared when overhearing what Din Djarin is wanting to do, immediately taking me back to A New Hope. But of course, Pelly swindles Din Djarin into purchasing R5. Now, for me personally, I absolutely love seeing R5 getting a rightful utilization in live action outside of, his horrible cowarding ways in A New Hope with Uncle Owen whenever Uncle Owen first purchases the thing. But I do have a storytelling criticism of this. It just throws me off with last week, man. I feel like last week was all about getting IG-11 back. Din Djarin couldn't do this mission without IG-11. So I don't understand the turn of events here to where Din Djarin's suddenly like, okay, R5's good enough. Enlighten me, Zach. What are you thinking?
Oh, I mean, that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like,
Okay.
well, what are we doing last week? So the only like, and I was talking to my wife about this. The only like hiccup is maybe when he went to talk to Grief, maybe he didn't know IG-11 was like even possibility. Like maybe he was just going to him to say, I need a droid. And then he saw IG-11 and was like, I need IG-11. But that's grasping at straws to figure out like why would he even go back to Grief besides the fact that we get to see him again and see like this thriving city that he's built. Like I got to agree that I
Yeah,
was like, all right, this is pretty weak plot stuff. Like if he just needed a droid, just get a droid. Like
right.
okay. And then at the end of it, he like uses the droid for 1 second, and it's like, this is weak. But I knew this R5 cat was special somehow. I
Yeah,
knew
he
I had
is.
heard
He
of
is.
him or seen him. but I was like, all right, I guess he's supposed to be scaredy cat. I don't know.
Yeah, he's a scaredy
But
cat droid that always freaks out under pressure for sure. For
yeah,
sure.
but
Now
hey, he came
apparently
through. He came
apparently he
through.
did come through. Apparently though they've made a comic book line to kind of give this
That's
droid
hilarious to me.
this
That
droid
this
some
droid.
glory, and like
Hey,
somehow his memory got wiped or something, he became this kind of goofy droid, but I don't
I
know.
like that
Anyway.
she called out like working with the rebellion and
Yeah,
stuff.
that
I
was
thought that
cool,
was cool.
and
So,
that's what connected to the comic book
mm,
line, I believe. But yeah, the IG-11 thing, I still think it's gonna pay off, but it does. Looking back on it, still feel like okay, we just maybe went with the safe move of going back to Navarro during the premiere.
yeah,
But then
that's all I
today,
can think.
another
But
thing. I read a report from Bestman Bulletin that those pirates we saw in episode 1 are in Skeleton Crew. So that could have been another reason why they came up with a plot device to get us to
mm,
go there. And maybe that's what connects to Jude Law and those kids that he's going to end up
and the like
taking away,
the
whatever.
monster dude pirate
Yeah, the
guy.
the Davy Jones Grinch
Yeah, the
guy.
Davy Jones. Yeah,
Anyway, but yeah, the
yeah,
IG-11 stuff, it is what it is. It is what it is. It was great to get R5 though, for sure, as a
yeah.
massive Star Wars fan that I am. Moving on here, we get the cool moment of Grogu looking out of the N1 to see fireworks as Tatooine is celebrating Bunta. I do have to admit, I was really hoping for a celebration of Boba Fett's reign or something like that going down, but I enjoy the prequel connection of Bunta Eve, and I appreciate knowing in the back of my mind that all kinds of Tatooine raves and races, whether that be pod or Vespas, are going on. Shout out
What
to the
about the
Vespa
what?
gang.
What about the little shout out of like, "Are you going after Boba Fett?" That threw me
Oh
off.
yeah, that
I was like,
that was interesting. I was like, why
I was
would
like,
he go after
yeah. I was
Boba
like,
Fett?
wait,
Wait a minute.
what? Interesting. No,
Yeah, that's a good
that's
point.
not
I
why I'm
didn't I
here,
didn't think
but
about even mentioning that.
because
I was just
we
hoping to
got a
get Boba
Boba
Fett
Fett
in
name
some
drop.
form. I
We
guess
will.
we did get him in some form. We got a name drop, but
Nah, we
physically,
will. He'll be back.
we're going back to Tatooine.
Nah,
Oh, okay, later season or another season of the Book of
no.
Boba Fett. You mean?
When we get to the end of this episode and I tell you what I think's gonna happen, that's where
Oh,
Boba Fett's gonna come
okay.
into play.
Well, there's a tease to keep listening, folks.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
let's move on here in our episode. As Din and Grogu approach Mandalore, he reveals that he has never been on the planet himself, and he actually grew up on the moon Concordia. So we're about to do a deep dive here because really a lot of this episode left is heavy Mandalore lore, which I absolutely love. Concordia is a moon of the planet Mandalore, and it was previously governed by Pre Vizsla during the Clone Wars. This moon was used as a hideout for the Death Watch, which lines up with Din Djarin growing up there then, with him being a child of the Watch. Even more interesting deep dive here, after the Mandalorian Civil War, Mandalore warriors were exiled on Concordia by the new Mandalorians and were presumed to have died out on this moon. Knowing that, it makes sense why this group of Mandalorians would form a cult called the Death Watch and be vengeful to return Mandalore to its old ways. It also makes sense that we have a larger group of Children of the Watch remaining in the galaxy compared to the new Mandalorians now because they were hiding out on Concordia during the Night of a Thousand Tears that we've seen in the flashback from the Book of Boba Fett. So just that small detail of him saying, I grew up on Concordia. I've never actually been to Mandalore. Kind of revealed so much as far as the state of Mandalorians in the galaxy at the moment. What are your thoughts on some of that lore deep dive? Because, you mentioned earlier, maybe you don't see or read everything. So what are your
Yeah.
thoughts on those things
I
there?
knew. First of all, just like base level of the show, I loved it because like, give me that, right? I want to
Mm-hmm.
know the lore. I want to know these details that we've never heard, and it shows me that Jon Favreau's thinking about all these things, which makes me happy. But on like a dad level, he's teaching Grogu how to like
Ooh,
figure out where he's at.
yeah,
Like,
that was cool.
hey man, if you're gonna be a Mandalorian, you got to know your stuff, and if you know how to read a map, you'll never get lost. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, I loved that little moment. Obviously, Grogu isn't gonna know how to read maps and all that just from that sentence, but in a little capsule of a moment, he's showing us that he's starting to teach him his ways and get him, in the mindset of a Mandalorian, and I love
Yeah.
that. And like the fact that he's like, yeah, that's where I grew up. So like everything you just said, the watch, all that, awesome. And then he's like, oh yeah, and over there is where
Kelvala.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's where uh
Bo-Katan.
Yeah, Bo-Katan. I kept thinking Vizsla. So that's where Bo-Katan's at. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I remember him saying like it's in the same uh area of Mandalore. And it's like it just kind of made it all click into place for me. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, I get it. Like here, and then this is Mandalore, and he's never been there. That's crazy.
Hmm.
And it's just like it was a really cool like 5 second moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like very
100%.
powerful.
And I'm glad you mentioned the whole teaching Grogu the Mandalorian ways. I think he even says that's our home planet to Grogu. I think
Maybe he
he
does actually.
he
I think he
uses
does.
our, and I don't think he said that's my home planet or something
Mm.
like that. So very cool here that we're fully committing, and this is what makes the Book of Boba Fett stuff pay off. We're fully committing to Grogu wanting to now be a Mandalorian more so than a Jedi. Now I still think he's going to be both, obviously, but he's getting to learn both things.
I think he's a
More so right now,
Mandalorian with the
Mandalorian.
Force. Hot take. I don't think he's a
Yeah,
Jedi. I think he's a Mandalorian that uses the Force.
I
But go
like that
ahead.
take. I like that take a lot. That perfectly sums up exactly what I was thinking there.
Oh,
All
okay, cool.
right. So we start breaking into the atmosphere. You can immediately see the planet has been crystallized, and Din shares that it has affected communications, so they won't be able to communicate off world. Obviously, that sets up why a character has to do something later in the episode. Seeing Mandalore in this way took me back to Boba Fett's quote in the season 2 finale, saying the planet had been turned into glass, and it literally has. And so when he said that in season 2, I didn't really know what he meant. I was like, oh, how is Mandalore now glass? That's kind of weird. If it got bombed, wouldn't it just be a bunch of rubble? But no, he's legit. It's just this poisonous, crystallized, I don't know,
Well, they
location at
think
this
it's
point.
poisonous.
Right.
They think,
They think
right?
it is. They think it is. But
I don't
then,
even remember Boba Fett saying that, so I'm so glad that you
oh,
remember it.
any,
Because
for some reason that dialogue stuck with me. I don't know if it's the way Tamara Morrison just delivered it, but
probably he's
it was
good, man.
great. It was great. R5, so we get the to the land here. R5 is sent out to test the atmosphere, but its signal is lost. So Din has to get out, leaving worried Grogu in the N1 all alone. When Din gets to the ruins, we see 3 creatures attack him, and he ignites the Darksaber for the first time this season, and he's clearly getting a little bit better. He's still struggling a bit, especially compared to some characters, or specifically one character later in this episode. But regardless, he's getting a little bit better. What were your thoughts on this little initial action with the Darksaber in season 3?
I thought it was a little clunky.
Really? Okay.
I so the reason I say that, I
By
felt like
design or
we
by like flaw?
but no, so this like the idea is fine,
Okay.
but I just thought it was way too long.
Okay.
Like we waited for the droid. Oh, he's scared and he's rolling, and oh no, he's off the radar. Who would have thought? I got to get out. Like I just thought it was way clunky in that sense.
Okay. I
I'm
got you.
cool with him. Like I like the story beat of like, oh, there's these things living down here. What are they? And what's he looking at? Like, what's the city and the place? And like, I thought all that was great. I just meant like the execution, I guess,
I
of
got
it
you.
was a little
Yeah.
clunky for me. I just was like, all right, what are we doing here? Because you know what's going to happen. The little droid's going to have to go away. He's going to have to help. And then he's going to say, oh, it's a fine. You don't have to wear your mask or whatever. Like, you know what's going to happen. So
Right.
that's why I was like, all right, come on now. Come on.
Yeah.
But all that being said, I thought it was a great scene. I loved him using the dark saber. I love that he still hasn't figured it out. Like he still is struggling with it a
Definitely
little bit.
hasn't.
And the fact that this planet is livable, I assume, like makes all the lore people go crazy in the sense of like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, there could be so many Mandalorians still on this place or whatever. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, I thought that was really cool, and all the lore stuff was great. It was
Yeah.
just the timing and the execution of it.
Sure.
Because these episodes are short, man.
They
They're
are.
short.
They are.
This
I
one was a
felt,
little longer,
while
but
you're talking on that though, I feel like the 45-minute that this one hit, I feel like that might be the Mandalorian sweet spot, honestly.
mm,
But the shorter than that,
yeah,
it
no, I
definitely feels
agree.
like a disappointment.
I agree. This one I actually felt it's crazy what that like extra 10 or 5 minutes can do, but I just felt like it was a more complete story
Yeah, for sure.
where we
No
had like a
doubt.
beginning, middle, end. Where like
Hmm.
last week I felt like we peeked open the curtain and then closed it real quick.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, I definitely agree.
and then like we're in this. HBO world where you have hour
Goodness.
15
Yeah.
long episodes where you're getting whole movies as an
Uh-huh.
episode. It's hard to watch Pedro in
The
Last
Last
of
of
Us
Us.
and
Yeah.
then watch him here and it's 30 minutes. You're like, ah.
Hmm.
But like you said, you made a great point. 45 minutes, that was great. Like,
Yeah,
made a big difference to me.
for sure. Now, you mentioned something there that made me think here. Din Djarin is able to put his helmet on, and regardless of what the atmosphere was like, he was able to seal it off. How come these Child of the Watch people haven't taken advantage of the fact that they never take their helmets off and they haven't tripled down on Mandalore already?
Yeah,
Like, no, this
I
is
did.
our place. This is
I
our
tried
place,
not to
dadgummit.
think about that. I was like, all right, that's really convenient that this helmet has like some sort of air sealing
Yeah.
ability that he can breathe through.
Uh-huh.
Because all I could think about was like, well, then why ain't everybody there? But I guess it's this myth, this curse
Right.
of Mandalore that everyone's
There's
scared of.
concern for
Like
sure.
no one has the cojones to go down and test it.
100%. 100%.
Um,
And of
and
course, you would
so
have to take a ton of bathroom breaks on like a ship or something because, you can only go one place. I guess you can only go on a ship to take your helmet off. So you would have to take turns as far as eating. You can't go
yeah,
somewhere and hide to take your helmet off because they can't do
that's
that.
what I mean. Like, it's not really sustainable, but it is Star Wars where people
Right.
fly around and like we have aliens and stuff. So
Sure.
it can be, but
We have a
I don't
human
want to,
speaking
yeah, I don't
Jawa
want
at
to
the beginning of
derail
the
on that, but
episode.
exactly. It's like, it's one of those things where I was like, oh, that's convenient. But then I moved on
Yeah,
immediately. Like, I
right.
didn't even think about it.
All
So,
right. So you alluded to R5 being knocked over. So we've already hit that. Probably out of
mhm.
fear, if I had to guess. He probably
Oh,
didn't even get touched.
I was going to say first, like, why would those things not just destroy him? I
Probably
was
because it was
thinking,
of
like,
no concern.
I guess I didn't think about that. I was just thinking, like, wouldn't this dude be like just mush of metal with these big creatures? But you're
Yeah,
probably right that he just went, ah, and then like that was it. He's like, I'm dead. I'm
probably.
dead.
Yeah. Well, anyway, R5 does end up serving its,
Yep.
hers. I don't know what
Yep.
what
It's
what
purpose.
R5 is. Its purpose, in the fact that the atmosphere is breathable. That gives the opportunity for Din and Grogu to explore, and this was done in an excellent way. As far as Din Djarin using the jetpack and Grogu hovering, that was just
Oh, so
gold.
good.
Great. It appears during this exploration that some of the locations seen on Mandalore in the Clone Wars series could be made out, specifically the meeting location of Darth Maul and the Crime Lords. So that was a really cool tip of the cap moment to animation fans. Zach, you probably didn't even catch on that though, but still,
No.
regardless, that was really cool for those of us that have seen the Clone Wars. But again, this is another example of it's good that we as Clone Wars or animation fans can really enjoy that kind of Easter egg, but it doesn't affect Zach or
It didn't
anybody
take
else
away at
like
all.
that. Yeah, that's when
Exactly.
it's done perfectly. So
Correct.
we'll keep moving on there, unless you have anything to say about the cute hovering abilities there.
No. I was just like, yeah, use your jetpack. Get
Yeah,
rid of the freaking cape, dude. Get rid of it. Like it's like it's so it annoys me that it like goes down and like over
to the
his to
side.
the side.
Man, I kind of
Just
like it.
get rid of the cape, dude. Or like split it down the middle so it like comes down both sides. I just think it
No,
looks
that would
so
look weird.
goofy. It looks so goofy. It's just like hanging over the side. I was like, dude, you don't need it. You're cool.
Fair enough.
But I
Fair
get it.
enough.
He's Mando. He needs his cape,
Yeah,
baby.
he does. He does. It's just the look, man. It's just the look. As
Yeah.
they're exploring, Din finds the old Mandalorian helmet we've seen heavily in marketing, and he suddenly gets scooped up by a robotic massive crawler, but Grogu hides to the side. Do we believe, this was just a random question I had as I was thinking of that, do we believe this helmet is an indication of this robotic crawler killing Mandalorians whenever they come in, or is this a sign of the demise of the Mandalorian people from the Night of a Thousand Tears? I think it's the latter. I think it's,
I think it's the latter.
yeah, this helmet's just in
I think
ashes or
he's
in
killing him
ruin.
over in this thing. So in
Yeah.
his little lair or whatever. So
What were your immediate impressions of this robotic crawler
I was like,
thingy?
what are we what happened? Like what is this?
I
I
thought so
was just
too.
like,
It was
what
so
in
weird.
the world? Am I watching Mandalorian? What is this? And then like
It's like
so
Transformers there for a
I've actually
second.
watched this episode a couple times because I watched it and then I watched it with my wife. She loves the show, by the way. That's like a whole nother
Yeah.
accomplishment by the show.
Hmm.
But so I've watched it a few times and at first I was like, this is dumb. Second watch, I was like, this actually works for me. And let me
Yeah.
explain myself
Okay.
just for a second.
Let's hear it.
So my reaction is how I just reacted, where I was like, "This is what is this? Like what?" So you're telling me like Mandalorian, this dude who survived everything, is gonna let this happen to him? And then I was like, "Well, this thing, I assume, you correct me if I'm wrong, was like designed for this type of deal. Is that correct?"
I'm assuming so. Yeah.
That's the vibes I got. That this thing was designed to like Venus flytrap people.
Oh
It
yeah.
already had the little stabber thing. And so I was like, okay, this makes way more sense that Mando would get like taken down by this thing, right? Because if Grogu
Hmm.
wasn't there, he dead.
Yeah.
So it has to be pretty serious for Mando not to be able to handle it. And so that kind of rubbed me weird. But again, the second watch, I noticed all the little things it was doing to him
Right.
to
Right.
like drug him or whatever. And so it
Yeah.
worked a lot more for me. And then we get what we're about to get into with Grogu. And
Yeah.
it
Well,
really worked for me the second time.
initially I was like, "What the heck is this, and why is it on Mandalore?" But when the droid initially comes out of the crawler, I got this eerie sense, and I was like, "Okay, this works. I like it," because I just immediately the stakes were raised with the way that the droid or whatever I don't know however it was designed, it worked
Yeah.
for me, and it created that kind of emotion in me. So I enjoyed that, and then when it shows the detail of the eye, and I'm like going wild here. This is totally wild. Why is this droid extracting blood from Din Djarin? Like, is it somehow this species that all that's left is this eye and it's trying to get back to like
Mm.
its full self? I don't know. Completely wild, but nonetheless, I ended up kind of enjoying it, even though it was initially very jarring because I was not expecting to see something like that at all. But
Well, I thought that thing was supposed to be like designed for this night of 1,000 tears. Like it was
okay,
designed
like
to take him
Empire
down.
Tech.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's how I interpreted it. I expected us to get on here today and you go, yeah, that's the blah 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 from the blah blah blah. But is that not the case then?
No, I've never heard it or seen it before.
Interesting.
Maybe there's something out there, but I didn't even think to look to see if this was something that was
Interesting. See, I just
all
thought
tech.
I assumed that it was just like part of this massacre and it was designed to kill Mandalorians. That's why it
Yeah.
did it so easily.
Hmm.
So I don't know. But either way, it ended
It
up
may have
working for
been.
me.
Yeah.
And that thing is really freaking creepy with the little eyeball.
Yes, it is.
And I really felt like he was a threat. Like I
Mm-hmm.
really felt like it was a threat. So I thought it
For
was well
sure.
done.
For sure. Well, you alluded to it. Grogu attempts to save him using the Force, but he is noticed, and Din instructs him to go get Bo Katan. Grogu eventually gets to the ship, defeating one of the creatures, and instructs R5 to fly him to Kelvala. Giving Grogu his own little side quest here played so well for me. This may have been the best. Well, I digress. There's definitely a better moment for me. We'll get to that. This was the best plot moving forward device though of this episode because I like the fact that we're getting this character development of seeing him clutch up and do the things that have to get done in these moments and not being utilized as simply just a cute little guy for admittedly to get non-Star Wars nerds to enjoy the show. Admittedly, that's what Grogu does for a lot of people, but it was nice to see him kind of move the plot forward and actually get something done, which he's totally that thing. He's totally that cute guy, but again, I just really enjoyed this fact that he got something done for Din Djarin, and I hope this is an indication that Grogu is going to continue to have more to do and to help Din Djarin get missions done. What did you think of Grogu's little quick but effective side quest here?
I loved it so much.
Mm.
And I'll tell you why. I didn't even consider this, that he would be able to like go on his own and like do things and save Mando, because that's what he does here. Like, don't get it twisted. Like, he is the reason that that Din is still alive. Like,
Yep.
that's pretty big, and I would have never guessed that that happened, especially in episode 2, that he can go all on his own, get to the place. That's the whole reason we have a droid on the ship.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
I digress. It's not about the whole air thing. It's about he needs someone to pilot the ship.
Yeah, he does.
However, even though I knew all of that while watching, I was like, okay, he's gonna get back to the ship. The thing's gonna take him to her. I get it. It was so good. I
Yeah, it was.
loved it so much. And I loved the little dragon thing coming after him, like the
Oh
little
yeah, the
side
dog
quest and the
dragon.
side
Yeah.
quest. Like I loved that. Because if you I watched it again and they're eyeing each other when they go by the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that happened, and R5 kind of saves him, quote
Mm-hmm.
unquote. That's cool. I just loved all of it. I love that Grogu can do things on his own. I didn't even consider it as a possibility. I want more of that. Give me more of Grogu learning the ways of the Mandalorian, coming into his own. Like
Yeah.
if all that starts to oh, it's gonna be so good.
You were talking there about the dog dragon side quest
Yeah, yeah,
thing. I
yeah.
forgot, while we were watching it, legit in the moment, my wife says, "Well, that would be a really cool Disney ride to be like in Grogu's pod and
Oh,
like go through the mines
100%.
of Mandalore and you have all these dog dragons flying
And
at
you're
you
like
and
going
you're
up
like
and
hovering
down,
up
and
and down. That would be
that's
fantastic.
and then that's how it ends. You get in the ship and
The
like
ship and you
R5
take
flies
off.
you
Yeah,
off.
that'd be great.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would love that idea. But
I
anyway,
love
it
Disney
was
World.
definitely a cool moment for sure.
Hmm.
Anyway, as Grogu arrives at Bo-Katan's castle, she says, "Let's get rid of him once and for all." But once she realizes it's just Grogu, she takes
Yeah.
Grogu and R5 back to Mandalore aboard her ship. Knowing where she is going, we get the shot of seeing Sundari blown up below. That was absolutely phenomenal. Now, a couple of things here. We're definitely going to get back to that quote from Bo-Katan for sure. One thing that I thought of as I was watching this is Bo-Katan's castle. I didn't really have a chance to kind of talk about this with somebody last week, being the only one on the podcast, but just for some reason I'm so in love with this location, and I see absolutely no reason why the Mandalorians can't just rebuild and create their foundation here. And they obviously have this castle to kind of, the symbolism's necessary for this culture. Obviously, they need this place to put their Mandalore higher on a mantle. And this place is beautiful. It's stunning. It's got everything they need. What do you think of Bo-Katan's castle?
I mean, it's a sick place, but it ain't home. You know what I mean? Like
That's fair.
it
But
ain't
home's
it
crystallized, man.
it ain't Mandalore. It don't matter. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
they I hate to say this, but like they're almost cult level. Like the whole race is like
it's fair.
that level of like obedience to
Mm-hmm.
Mandalore. So like nothing's gonna be good enough. Nothing.
Okay,
And
so you
so
think the end game of the show then is to fully just Mandalore's reclaimed and back to its glory?
yeah, maybe not back to its glory, but they're gonna try. Um,
Okay.
I
Now
think that's
we've still seen this shot in the trailer. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about here, but there's this grassy surface surrounded by like these domes. It's almost like a half dome compared to what Sundari used to be. I don't know what's going on there, and I'm still trying to figure it out. We've seen a lot of shots from the trailer now at this
just about to
point.
say that. Like, dude, we've seen like 90% of the trailer
There's
at
a
this point,
lot. It's
which
really
I
stuff
love.
with
Like, that's awesome. That makes me
Carson
happy.
Carson Teva, Dr. Pershing, Coruscant, or wherever that the New Republic place is at.
Hmm.
Going back to the cave where the armor is, because we see Din Djarin walking out of that cave and looking out, which of course I shared. I think it was no, it was on the podcast last week. I shared a theory on that, how it could be Grogu taking the Creed, which would be wild. There's still some things to be seen, but yeah, a lot of stuff from the trailer has been covered. But let's talk about this quote. As far as Bo-Katan saying, "Let's get rid of him once and for all," were you thinking that she was wanting to kill Din Djarin there, or just really take it to that next level and say, "Look, quit bugging me. I'm done. Get out of here. I don't want to see you again, or I will get rid of you officially."
I took it as she was about to go pull a gun on him.
Oh
That's
man.
how I took it, because I was like,
Yeah.
what? Like, golly, that's harsh. But then I was like, oh, I mean, I guess like go get him. I don't
Yeah.
know, but that surprised me, and I wouldn't say it took me out, but I just was so like it was so aggressive. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
golly, like for what? Like I don't understand.
Well.
But I got the whole dark saber thing going on, and
Mm-hmm.
I understand that maybe they were playing on that, but for me, I just took it as like, whoa, what? And then immediately she's like, I told you to stay away. And it's
Right.
like, all right, maybe I was wrong.
Yeah.
I took it
Well,
too
I
much.
think it's just that the show is trying to get the viewer to see the possibility of Bo-Katan flipping and being the villain, and I think that's why they probably use that very aggressive dialogue there. I don't think she would obviously she wasn't going to kill Din Djarin if he was there, because then we wouldn't have a show. But
well, yeah, but
there's
still.
that threw me off there for a second, because I was like, wait a second, are we already to that level where you're about to go toe to toe with this dude? And definitely by the end of this episode, I think we're the opposite spectrum potentially as far as what's going between Bo-Katan and Din Djarin.
In terms of her
again,
castle,
we'll get there.
talking about her castle,
yeah,
that's so weird to me. Like, she's just always sitting in this chair.
well, that's with any thrones, right?
It's so weird. Well, there's like no one around, like ever.
Like there's no council
to
talk to
spot.
her or
like,
anything.
what do you just sleep there, or like, girl, go get some air? You know what I mean? Like, come on. I that's so weird to me. So I'm just so happy we got her out of that stupid chair and doing something. So I'll go ahead and kind of lead us into the next thing.
Do it.
Where Grogu is saying, hey, he doesn't actually say anything, because I'm like, oh, like how are they going to do this? But she literally realizes it's just Grogu. She says, oh, what happened? Like, she immediately switches, and this is when I knew, like, okay, I was exaggerating. Like, she's not going to kill him. She was probably just going to like teach him a lesson. But she immediately like, oh no, what happened? Like, what do I need to do? And so she looks at Grogu. She's like, he ain't gonna help me. Give me R5. Give me his information. Where were they? Let's go find them. And I loved it. From this point on, the episode goes to like level 1 million for me.
It was as soon as Bo-Katan got involved when I was like, okay, sign me up.
And I can't believe that that's the case. Like, I didn't realize like how good of a character she is, because again, I don't have all this backstory with her that everyone else does that know the lore. To me, I know her from the last season. You know what I mean? And so immediately she makes a huge difference on the show. And her little interactions with Grogu on the ship when they're flying. So they get the astromech information. They go on. All right, we're going to go save him. She gets the information. She's looking at Grogu. And what does she say to him? She says something like sneaky to him. Dang, I can't remember.
On the ship?
But, yeah. Where like Grogu doesn't say anything, but she says something to him, like gives him a little smirk. She's a little cocky, by the way.
Oh, 100%. That's Bo-Katan for sure.
She's a little cocky. I was like, okay, all right, calm down. Don't get too cocky on me. But then she goes in here. So Grogu, they get the same scene, right? Where they're falling down together.
Yeah, it was great. That was great too.
And she's talking to him. It's all exposition. It's all for me, the dumb, live action guy.
Live action only.
Tell me your backstory of Princess and your father was a good guy and all this stuff. I thought that was amazing. And this is when I fell in love with her. Okay. She doesn't say anything.
Uh-huh.
And she just pushes Grogu off to the side.
Yeah, that was great.
I was just like, all right, she's amazing. Like, come on, what's she about to do? And like, because you see like the little things going on, and you're like, okay, she knows what she's doing. And then she immediately, no questions asked, starts popping it on the top. They come down. She murks all of them, and then she turns to Grogu and says, "You didn't think your dad was the only Mandalorian?" I was just like, all right, sign me up.
There's that cockiness that you alluded to.
Exactly.
For sure.
Exactly.
She loves talking that talk, but she backs it up for sure.
Dude, I loved that little moment so much.
Yeah.
I loved it so much because it just summed her up in my mind of like her character. She is like quippy and cocky, but she's great. Like she can back it up. And tell me if I'm wrong and all that. But
no, you're definitely not wrong.
What were your thoughts about her going with Grogu and flying and saving him and stuff?
I thought it was great. I loved the banter back and forth between the two. It almost kind of seemed there for a while that she could understand what he was saying. Like I kind of got those vibes there for a minute. I was like, how is this possible? What's going on? But maybe it was just her kind of reading between the lines. You know how it is, and now I know how it is. I have conversations with my 4-month-old son, and he can't speak sentences or anything, but somehow I feel like I know what he's saying. So I kind of feel like that. I feel like that's what's going on there. But yeah, all of these moments were great. I loved her kind of questioning about Grogu's Jedi background, and I really thought there for a second that maybe that's where we would have gotten the Order 66 flashback that we've seen in trailers, but I'm glad we haven't seen that yet because we got to have something to be looking forward to because now they're running through this series or season so far breakneck pace as far as connecting to what we've seen in trailers. So I'm glad that they're saving that. But I think it was the last moments before they get to Din Djarin. I liked her little tease of, if those, I think the creatures are Alamites is what I have in my notes.
Mm-hmm.
If those creatures are still alive, I wonder what else is still
Bingo.
alive. And
like
immediately
that,
for me, I was like, okay, Mythosaur, 1,000%. That's what you're alluding to. I don't know if we're going to see it by the end of the episode, but that's what we're getting at here. That's what we're getting at here for sure.
I didn't even know what that was.
I knew it as soon as she said it. I was like, okay.
I thought she just meant her people. So I was like, oh, her people are still some people of her people are still living. That's how I took it. I didn't take it as this Mythosaur is still alive. But keep going.
Okay, well, we end up getting to Din Djarin, and this is where, again, it just, the episode skyrockets.
Yeah.
Arrives to Din, where the droid is now, of course, we alluded to it already, extracting blood from him. She picks up the Darksaber off the ground to fight the droid. The droid gets inside the crawler, and Bo-Katan officially takes it out with that Darksaber in hand. Now, Bo handles this Darksaber very easily here, which, if you're a non-Clone Wars viewer, trust me that it totally lines up. She has wielded the Darksaber before, and she obviously is very knowledgeable of the weapon, given her past things like that we'll definitely dive deeper into as she's conversating with Din Djarin. But my question here, this scene, and I don't really feel like it's a question. I feel like this is 1,000% what they got going on here. I feel like this scene really occurred to get the viewer thinking of, should Din Djarin really be the guy having this Darksaber? Because she's pretty awesome with it. What do you think, Zach?
I took it as this used to be hers. Okay. That's how I took it.
Yeah.
Like I took it as like, okay, we know Gideon, is that his name? Moff Gideon?
Moff, yeah.
We knew he had it. Sometime before him, she had it. Like, that's what this scene told me. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. So, like, it showed me, like, okay, you thought she was amazing and could handle herself. This proves now, like, no, she, like, is the GOAT. Like, she is the Mandalorian.
She is that guy, pal.
That, like, needs to be willed in this thing.
Uh-huh.
But then I thought, like, it just gave so many questions and levels to me that I absolutely loved without even saying anything. Like, she picks this thing up, and I knew what she's going to do. She starts whipping this thing around like it's nothing. And we just saw Din, like, clumsily, barely kill these dudes.
Yep.
First of all, she takes them all out quickly. Just want to point that out.
Very much so.
Then she takes this thing out twice with the Darksaber, which I just want to throw something out there. Again, she didn't kill the little head thing again. She just killed the big thing. The little head is in there still. So that twisted me a little bit. But I digress. I don't care. It was just a little point like, oh, get the little thing. And she didn't. But we immediately, skip ahead where Din sees her. It fades out. We wake up.
Yeah.
We're there. I thought that was a great call by the director. Like, I don't
Good
need
pacing.
to see her.
Good pacing.
Yeah. I don't need to see all that. Just okay, I'm awake. You know what I mean? Like, I loved that call. But go ahead.
Well, they're now the trio. Now that after Bo-Katan has saved Din Djarin, they've ascended back to the city remains. Bo-Katan questions if she was right by saying Mandalore wasn't cursed because it is now in ruin, informing non-Clone Wars and Rebels viewers that she once ruled the planet briefly. Bo-Katan gives Din pog soup and roast Din for never having it before. I absolutely love that little dialogue exchange between them. Din stands by following the Creed rules because without them, he isn't sure what Mandalorians would be, and he refuses to leave with Bo-Katan because he still needs to find the living waters, and Bo-Katan decides to show him the way. Obviously I question what's the word I'm looking for here? The desire to be so by the book, by the children of the
obsession.
Watch. Yes, but I respect Din Djarin so much for him being so about his beliefs and like, look, I appreciate you, Bo, for saving me, but I still have to do this. And then I also, on the flip side, appreciate Bo respecting that and helping him take those next steps. So let's actually then go ahead and get into this part of the episode. This is where it really starts getting juicy. Bo reveals that what she really hates is her people continuing to fight with one another, and that it's no wonder the Empire was so easily able to destroy the planet. She gives an interesting backstory regarding her family and how they were treated like royalty. She went through the Creed herself and the mines as a child for spectacle, making her father proud. She believes her father was a great man who died defending Mandalore. This makes Din stop in his tracks and say, "This is the way." Now, Bo-Katan saying that she hates her people being divided has me questioning if there's any possibility of her doing this whole thing of taking the Creed yet again to just mend the relationship with the Children of the Watch, to get Mandalore back to reclaim its glory. That's an idea that I have. I don't know if we're there yet, but maybe it's something that the show is trying to do to get us thinking. Do you have any thoughts on that idea?
Oh, 100%. That entire conversation tells me that she's going to eventually accept this creed, this idea. So? Yeah. Well, at least that's just my take, is like,
yeah. Well, it's definitely a possibility.
Because
the
way she looks at Din every time he like stands up for what he believes in, and
it's admiration.
Yeah, but and also like, I don't even know if you call them human beings, whatever they are, they're Mandalorians. They're obsessed with their culture. And what more is their culture than having this obsession with this creed, this idea, this philosophy, right? And so I think that I would hate to say that like this cult that he's in, or whatever they call them, the zealots, of the, this is the way people, I don't know what you call them, but like, I think this is opening her mind. The same way there was this facade, this mist about Mandalore, I'm sure there's this facade and mist about these people that he considers himself to be a part of, right?
Right.
So she's seeing the benefits of like this obsession, this love, this passion, this faith. It's a faith, honestly.
It is, yeah.
And I just love those little moments, like where she says, oh, he died defending Mandalore, and he immediately just turns there and says, "This is the way."
Shows respect.
And she, she like looks at him and is just like,
right,
wow,
taken
and
aback by it.
Then she comes back to being herself, and she looks at Grogu and is like, "What are you looking at?" or whatever. I love that moment, by the way. I thought that was really cool, like her personality. Like she doesn't want to show that emotion. You know what I mean?
I agree.
But this entire conversation, fascinating. Loved it so much. Her and Din are amazing together. Definitely some sexual tension going on. Like,
I usually don't sign up for these internet
dude, it was
shippings,
palpable.
But this one I'm all for. I'm all
palpable. And then it's especially in this next scene we're about to talk about, it is you can see the waves, like she is falling for this dude, like, just because, like,
literally.
Well, frankly, like, Din represents, in my mind, what a Mandalorian is. He's faithful, he's loyal, he's capable, he's responsible. All of these things that Mandalorians say they are, or that people say they can be, I feel like he is literally all those things. And so if you imagine, what she's seen, what she's been through, the word Mandalorian doesn't mean what it means to Din, right? And so she's seeing that personified, and she's like, oh my gosh, like, I loved all that. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's great stuff. The interactions between these two are absolutely phenomenal. Now, I did put here in my notes, her stating that the family was viewed as royal immediately made me liken them to the British royal family, which makes me want a Disney Plus drama series similar to The Crown, only call it House Kreese. That would be absolutely phenomenal. Sign me up for that. I don't think Disney Plus would ever go to that level as far as just the brutality, I guess. Not brutality. The Crown's not brutal, but it's definitely more adult themed for sure.
Yeah.
I would just
adult.
Now that we're getting all this Mandalore lore,
I
just see so much potential for like a Old Republic prequel show focused only on the planet of Mandalore, just to get a better understanding of its politics and its leaders, its dukes, its duchesses, and all of
What
that
were your
stuff.
vibes when they're flying over it? I assume in the Clone Wars or whatever, you get to see like Mandalore popping
Oh,
before it was all
100%.
destroyed.
Oh
So like when
yeah.
they're flying over, were you all like, "Oh, look at the city, it's destroyed. This is sad."
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Well, of course, we saw that with. I think the first trailer showed the ruins of
Oh,
Sundari.
maybe.
So yeah, the emotions that I went through seeing that I had already experienced watching the trailer.
Oh, okay.
So it
Yeah.
didn't really like whenever I saw it in this episode, I wasn't like, oh my gosh, there it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I will
no,
say,
trust me, that happened 8 months ago. That happened 8 months ago.
that's 100% on the stagecraft or whatever they call it. What do they call it? The
Volume, yeah,
volume. That's
yeah.
100% on the volume. I thought it looked incredible, Keller. Like I thought that looked the most real I've ever seen
The volume,
the volume look. The
yeah.
fact that the ship has like little flapping parts on it,
Mhm.
and you have the perspective of the ship flying and it's stationary, and you see that like you're flying over I thought it looked so good.
It did. It
I
very
thought it looked
believable.
amazing.
It,
Yes.
yeah, it
Like
looked
I was like,
great.
whoa, that looks sick. So yeah, sorry, I wanted to go back to the ship scene. I meant to
Yeah,
bring it up
no,
then because
no. For some
that
reason, we
looked
kind of glanced over
so
it.
cool.
Yeah, it did. It
But
did.
yeah.
You know what? And that reminds me of something here. Screw you, IGN. I don't know if you've seen this, Zach.
No.
IGN gave the episode a 5 out of 10 because they
I
couldn't
did see because it was dark. All right, if you're listening
Screw
to this
you,
podcast,
IGN. What is that?
I'm calling out the listeners here. If you're listening to this and you think it's too dark and that's your complaint, I don't know what to tell you.
Fix your TV.
I've seen it.
Turn
I've
on
seen
the
it on
TV
Game of
first.
Thrones.
Turn
I've
it on.
seen it on
Number 2.
like House of the Dragon, people complaining about the darkness. And this level was 150 times brighter than
it
those
was.
episodes. So like that, I did not even consider that being a thing. Like it's too dark.
I know.
But
well, and another thing too, even in the too dark House of the Dragon or Game of Thrones episodes, they're not giving it a 5 out of 10 for it. Like, what is that trash? Absolute trash.
That made me actually.
I lost a lot of respect.
That
for
made me
IGN
angry
with that one.
Whoever reviewed that and put that in the headline,
Yeah.
like, oh, it's too dark to see anything. A 5? What?
Yeah. Cringeworthy.
Yeah, that blew my mind. I was like, get that reviewer out. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Like, dude, you lost your credentials.
For sure.
But go ahead. Yeah, that was bananas.
I did want to mention, I did some research because I didn't know this. It may have been mentioned in Clone Wars, but it's just been so long since I've watched it. Bo-Katan's father's name is Adonai, something like that. Adonai, Adonai.
Okay.
So, cool connection there. Quick history lesson regarding him. Adonai was killed during the Great Clan Wars. Add another Mandalorian war to the list, I might add. There's so many of them. While defending Mandalore, this death led to Bo-Katan's older sister, Satine, to become the Duchess of Mandalore, which led to Bo-Katan joining the Death Watch for a while because she believed they should take pride in Mandalorian history, while Satine wanted to create this new Mandalore. Bo-Katan ended up leaving the Death Watch once it joined arms with Darth Maul and Savage Opress, leading to her being more aligned with Satine and leading to the character that we now kind of see in this Mandalorian show. So definitely wanted to add that background for those that listen to us that haven't necessarily seen the Clone Wars or know more so about Bo's background there. So they officially get to the mines where there's a plaque on the wall giving backstory to the first Mandalore. The quotes on the wall say the following. These mines date back to the age of the first Mandalore. According to ancient folklore, the mines were once a mythosaur lair. Mandalore the Great is said to have tamed the mythical beast. It is from these legends that the skull signet was adopted and became the symbol of our planet. Now, I gotta admit, I found that, as far as it being up on the wall, extremely funny because it reminds me, I don't know if other states have this, but here in Tennessee, we have these random location marks as far as significant history marks just throughout the state. And I immediately was like, okay, that's kind of goofy that we got that going on in Star Wars, but it served the plot, so it was okay.
Oh, no, I thought it worked perfectly. The reason I thought it worked perfectly is because she gives the quip of, let me give you the full tour.
Yeah. Okay.
Like
yeah.
like they're tourists. Like I loved her little quip, and it immediately made it okay for me. Because
Okay.
I was like, I get it. This is all exposition, but it worked for the
Yeah.
world because of how she described it.
For
And
sure.
because of what we're about to see, apparently.
Yeah. Well, in the next moments, for some reason, this hit me on an emotional level, and I didn't expect it at all. But Din recites the creed as he gets in the waters, but he is suddenly taken down. Bo-Katan immediately leaps in after him. Now, I think it's the music. I watched it on a second playback.
Dude,
It's like the Mandalorian theme, but it's more, and I hate
it's
to
more
say this,
orchestral.
it's more like Game of Thronesy soundy.
100%. It's more like, it's more airy. It has more thickness to it.
Yeah.
It's more just in your body.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also the cinematography of just showing his feet getting into the water as it was almost like, I don't want to get biblical, but it was almost like this, like this idea of a Christ
Oh
type
yeah,
where he's
100%.
like going down into the water. I
I think
just,
that's by design. So I think
dude,
I think we need to talk about the
well, it
biblical
just
connections
worked.
there for sure.
Like, yeah, like nothing about the Bible. It just like that tied those together to this holiness of the water, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of the creed, and him finally getting to where he can abolish for his sins, whatever you believe in. Like that's basically what he's doing, right? Is
Yeah.
he's baptizing himself in the water.
Mm-hmm.
And I like almost started crying. I thought it was like so powerful, dude.
Yeah,
The
it
fact he
was.
strips everything off. Well,
Mm-hmm.
obviously besides his armor, he
His
strips all
cape
the
that
other
you don't
stuff
like.
off. Bingo. And he looks goofy without a cape. So I immediately was like, I take back what I said. He looks dumb.
He
He
did
looks
look
like a
goofy.
tin man. So leave the cape on, Dan. If the listeners like only watch the first half, they're like, God, this dude doesn't like the cape. But I come back. See if I gotta keep listening.
That's all right. I'll clip it.
Yeah, wear the cape. But
I'll do the whole thing where it's like SpongeBob 3 hours later.
wear the cape. Don't leave the cape. No, I absolutely loved this, dude. Like
Mm-hmm.
it hit me so emotionally hard, and the fact that it zooms in on Bo-Katan,
Dude.
like during this, so well done. Another
And see,
little directorial thing. It's
yeah.
because I just found out she's a cinematographer,
Mm-hmm.
so she gets it. That's why
Mm-hmm.
those were so good. It's because we're not focusing like any typical director would just have like a wide shot of him just walking into the water and being,
Yeah.
whatever. But no, we got the quick zoom ins of him and then his face and then his feet getting down in the water as we hear the voiceover, and then
Yeah.
not worrying about him.
And the music.
Oh, and the music. Yes, yes, yes. The music was just amazing. And then like, but we don't focus on him. We focus on her. And it just,
Yeah.
oh, so good,
Well,
dude.
and I know you caught on to this earlier, but it was at this moment when it focused in on her where I was like, okay,
Yes.
either Bo-Katan's just really enjoying this. I guess it's just a cultural impactful moment. So she's just really enjoying kind of that coming home sense of what's going down here. But number two is at this moment where it's like, okay, I think she's starting to feel what Din Djarin's putting down here just a little bit too much.
Yeah, no, yeah, dude. I think it's all of those levels. I think it's like a cultural just shakeup of
Yeah.
being like, whoa.
It's like she felt pride in being a Mandalorian again, and she
Exactly.
hadn't
Well,
felt
because
that for
she's
a
been
while.
making a joke of this the entire
Hmm.
time. He's told her multiple times, I got to get to the living waters. And she's like, the living waters? Why would you want to do that?
Yeah.
All right. You ain't thanking me yet. I'll take you there or whatever. And then she gets there and sees this just heavy moment. And she's
Yeah.
just like, whoa, like
Hmm.
this is what it means to have a
Yeah.
creed, to be faithful, to be like all those things I said earlier. Like it was just this coming of episode moment where it's like everything's coming together. It's clicking for her. Like
Yeah.
maybe this zealots and these fanatics are not too crazy. Maybe
Well,
like
there's definitely, and see, this is my struggle because I know how the Death Watch is. Like I know because the Children of the Watch is kind of basing a lot of their things off the Death Watch. That is definitely too extreme as far as like being the right way to be Mandalorian, no doubt. So I do think that there's a middle ground, and I think that's where Bo-Katan's going to come into play. Like I think she's
100%.
going to end up respecting a lot of the things that the Children of the Watch do, but I think there needs to be this kind of, we need to figure out what it really means.
We can
to
take
be
our helmets off.
Mandalorian. Essentially, yeah.
No, like
Yeah.
seriously, that's exactly where I was going to end this. So I'll just say it now. Like, I think this moment is where we see her crack in the sense of like, maybe, like you said, maybe this fanatical idea isn't what we need. However, the pieces are there, right?
For sure.
Like I said, the faith, this creed, this idea, this love for Mandalore and this loyalty to oneself, that's what we need. And we need to bring that back because we've lost our way, and this is the way.
This is the way.
If I had a mic, I'd go.
That was beautiful. Well said. Well said. Well, of course, I mentioned Din Djarin gets taken down, but the question that I had was, did he fall? Did he fall, or did he actually get taken down?
Yeah, dude. Like I said, my second watch, I was like, wait a second, did he just like slip off the edge and just boom? Like, I can't
talk
swim.
About ruining a beautiful moment.
I know.
That's worse than slipping up, walking up the stage at the Oscars or something.
Yeah, like I knew something was gonna happen, like in the water, but I didn't. Very unclear of what I thought she was gonna have to go down and boom, 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 like in the water, kill something. But no, he's just laying at the bottom.
Yeah,
he just fell asleep when he got in the water.
Yeah, well, this is where it takes the turn. Ooh, here we go. Here we go. Okay, so as Bo-Katan goes in. By the way, okay, hold on. Pause. Actually, we're not taking the turn yet. So on my second watch, I noticed, and I'm dying laughing trying to get this sentence out. Bo-Katan full on belly flops. She does not dive
100%, dude. I saw that the second watch
so
too.
hard for whoever was in the suit to get a dive.
Dude, whoever did that dive, fail.
It was so funny.
Like they
Second
just went
watch,
like, if this is the water, they just went. And
there's no way they were descending after that impact.
I was like, you couldn't do like a third take on that.
Oh man!
Like, come on, man. I agree 100%. That was so clunky, but whatever. It don't matter. It made me laugh more than anything.
It is whatever. It's whatever. So now let's take the turn, though. I had to get those giggles out. So
yeah, true.
Bo-Katan is bringing Din Djarin back to surface, and again, the music was phenomenal. You could tell that something very important was about to go down, and we see a mythosaur alive. Not that it was just sitting there, potentially dead or asleep. No, you see the eyeball, you see the head turn, you see the shape. It's somewhere on the screen if you're on YouTube. It's on our logo. That's the skull. That's the mythosaur skull that, as Star Wars fans, we've come so accustomed to seeing as far as representing the Mandalorians, but we've never actually seen it live action. Well, it's here. And it's freaking here to stay, I hope. Let's go. I was so hyped when I saw this. I told you, Zach, I was watching this at 5 a.m. Baby in the other room, dead asleep. I wanted to scream so loud out of pure excitement, but I had to hold it in, and I did successfully. But goodness gracious, the chills and the emotions that came across me there were unreal. Something that I didn't expect to experience in the second episode of this season. And I took to Twitter and I said, I think this means just as much to me as the Luke Skywalker show up in the end of season 2. What did you think of the mythosaur reveal? And then we'll start talking about these theories and ideas that I have of this.
I got to be completely honest with you here. I just thought that's the thing she was going to battle, like in the water. Yeah. I thought that's what had taken Din down, and she was just going to have to battle this thing. And then I saw the size of it, and I'm like, what do we like? What's it doing? It didn't do anything. Like it didn't. Yeah. And then it like took me. It threw me off. To sum it up, because I was like, first of all, what is this thing? Why is it in the water? Did it take Din down? And if it didn't, did he just slip and hit his head?
Right.
It was just all of these questions. And then, so I watched it again. I've said this a billion times at this point. I watched it once, and a second watch. Highly recommend a second watch, is what I'm trying to say.
For sure.
Because I watched it again, and we don't talk a lot when we do a show. We try not to text each other,
right?
So we can be live here. But this one thing, I was very confused about.
Okay.
And so you had told me, this is the mythosaur, and it's a big deal or whatever. And so I watched it again. And I did not realize at the time, the first watch, that Bo is like flabbergasted when she comes out, right? She
Mm-hmm.
like looks back and she's still wearing a helmet, but you can like tell she's just like, what did I just see?
Yep.
And so that's when I knew, like, okay, maybe something is here. We're obviously going to get way more backstory and way more explanation of what's going on here. But my initial take was just confusion. I got to be
Okay.
honest. Like,
Okay.
I'm glad that it worked for you,
Yeah.
but for me,
Yeah.
I was just like, what is this big thing? That's
Well,
scary.
and again, I feel like that. I think that that's a good thing as far as the show goes because it's still for people like me. We had our freak out sesh for
Sure,
sure,
sure.
but for those that that aren't deep into it already, are just curious of okay, what the heck was that massive thing? And I'm sure we'll
I
get
just thought it was
explanation next week.
I just thought it was another creature in the water. Like we see big
Right,
creatures all the time. I just thought it was another big
right,
creature, and then okay, she's out of the water,
yeah,
and then somehow she
yeah,
found him in this
yeah.
black darkness,
Mm-hmm.
um that he had his little light on, thank God.
Right, for sure.
But
Which
all in all, it just kind of confused me. But
okay,
second watch, I thought it was cool, like
uh huh.
especially after talking to you.
Okay, so you watched it the second time you watched it, you knew it was the
Yeah,
Mythosaur.
yeah, we had
Okay,
talked, and
okay,
then
okay.
that's when I watched it again, and because I think we talked like Wednesday afternoonish,
Yeah, yeah.
like right after we had both watched it for the first time,
Uh
and
huh.
then I watched it that night with Taylor.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's when I saw. But all in all,
Yeah.
I thought it was cool. I thought it kind of falls into the clunky boat for me, if I'm being completely honest,
Okay.
with him like falling in the water, and it was
Yeah.
really clunky just to get that reveal that the mythosaur is still alive. I just don't know how you do it otherwise. But
Yeah. Well, this I guess the Mythosaur being in the water plays into my theory here, so I'll go ahead and get
yeah,
into
say it.
that. My theory is that this Mythosaur has essentially been hibernating until the next true Mandalore returns or arrives into these living waters and takes the creed or whatever. And now suddenly, we don't know who it is, but Din Djarin, Bo-Katan are both in the water, and suddenly this thing's awake. The theory of mine is that clearly one of these two is going to be the true Mandalore the Great that hasn't been around in ages. And I think that's what the rest of the season's going to explore is who is in fact between Din Djarin or Bo-Katan, who is in fact the true great Mandalore the Great that's going to tame this thing. And another thing of mine that I'm wondering is Bo-Katan could easily keep this information to herself. If she's really interested in, okay, Din Djarin's got the dark saber, but this is my chance to make a play for the throne, if you will. I'm gonna
Ooh.
go get this Mythosaur, and this is my claim to the Mandalore seat. Here you go, and then that way the Mandalorian people have to choose: is the dark saber more important, or is the fact that this Mythosaur that hasn't been around in thousands of years more important? I think that could be a very interesting situation or plot
Mhm.
movement for this show. What do you think about those ideas?
I love the last one.
Okay.
The fact she might keep it to herself, specifically because of how the show ends,
Mm-hmm.
where
She's
she's
out of it.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, and she's just staring. Just,
She's like panting, and
dude.
she's had this reveal to her because you've talked about it throughout this entire episode. She's bashing all of this
Hmm.
folklore. She's
Hmm.
like, no, all of this is nonsense.
Living
We don't need
waters. This is
any
a
of that.
joke. Like, you're
Really, the
wasting your
only thing that means anything
time.
to her is the dark saber. But suddenly, she has this moment, and I think she is now. First of all of her beliefs are resparked. She believes that Mandalore is going to come back one day because she's seen this mythosaur alive. And now I think she's more interested in being the person to do that yet again. All of that stuff happens
Mm.
because she sees this mythosaur. Now the
So,
question is, does she think about how Din Djarin could play in, or does she go back to being kind of selfish a bit and is like, okay, here's
oh,
my
dude.
chance?
The more I think about it, those little scenes, maybe they weren't sexual. Maybe they were like respected. Like maybe he's
Mm.
the one. Maybe that's what she's thinking.
Ooh.
And like maybe, but she seems so cocky to me that I don't think she would like give in. Like she would want the throne. I don't know. Historically, is she like that hungry for the throne type situation?
I mean, even in season 2, she's pretty hungry about it because
Well,
Din
I
Djarin comes in with
agree,
the dark
but
saber, and
she
I
doesn't
mean,
kill him immediately though. Like if she really
no,
wanted it, you know what I
no, but
mean?
she's
Like
she's pretty upset for sure.
I it just kind of threw it all for a loop in her
Yeah.
mind. And that's
Okay.
why I wanted to preface with this whole cultural and faith and everything, because like we just said, everything she joked about became real in about 5 seconds.
Yep.
And so it's
For
like, oh
sure.
my gosh, like this thing's still alive. Are again, it's a religion,
Yeah,
basically.
it is.
They are godlike figure, this mythical figure that no one's seen in ages
Yeah.
is still alive and real in front of her face that she just saw. And like you said, fun fact, it was not awake when they were there. It woke up
Right.
when they went by. So that's
Right.
interesting too.
Yeah, I think it.
Very
I think the
interesting.
mythosaur just sensed it, and it's just up for the show to tell us who is that mythosaur
Oh
responding to.
man,
And I
it's
can't wait to.
fascinating.
I
Yeah, it's
can't wait to figure
fascinating.
that out for sure. For
It's
sure. Well,
fascinating.
there's all of the breakdown, the entirety of chapter 18 titled
Loved
The
it.
Mines of Mandalore. Yeah, it was a fantastic episode. I definitely think it was an increase in comparison to the premiere. I still enjoyed the premiere. I think I said it was like a 8, 7.5, 8 out of 10, something like that. Probably 7.5 now that I've seen this one. I would
Hmm.
give this a solid 8.5, 9. Like, I
I was
really
gonna
enjoyed
say
this one a
like
lot. This was a five, top 3, top 5 Mandalorian
yeah,
episode to date.
I'd say 8.8. That's my rating on it.
There you
If we're
go.
doing ratings here,
Very
I thought
high.
it was
Well,
very good. Very
yeah,
good.
very good. Well, speaking of ratings, let's hop over to our submissions. The people that reached out to us, thank you so much for doing that. So definitely want to do our due diligence and give some shout outs and talk to you guys. So over on Twitter, I keep doing this. I'll probably keep doing it. I tweeted out a poll. How would you rate out of 10 Chapter 18 of The Mandalorian titled The Mines of Mandalore? Here are the results. 9 out of 10 was voted on 82.1% of the time, so that's the great category. The second one, obviously, then 7 to 8 was 16.4. And then there was probably just one joker that said 5 out of 6, and they probably, excuse me, they probably take IGN too literal in that sense. That's probably what happened there.
100%.
But
100%.
yeah, it looks like across the board, the fan base, the Mandalorian fans really enjoyed this one as far as those poll results go. Now,
Yeah.
let's look at some Twitter submissions that we'll discuss. Jessica Sitton said, "Can all the other episodes be like this?" I think they are. I think they are going to be like this. If we're going to keep exploring this mythosaur thing, we're in for a doozy. And the stakes, I was concerned, weren't going to be high enough compared to Luke Skywalker returning. Well, the stage has been set, in my opinion. Do you believe that as well?
Oh yeah, no, I think this could be way bigger than Luke
Okay.
Skywalker showing up.
Okay.
And
Good.
not a a hate on Luke. I'm just saying
Yeah.
that was a moment. This is a
Cultural movement, a
I mean yeah,
cultural
literally
wave.
like it's a reclaiming of an entire like idea, a
Yeah.
planet, a place, and it's just so fascinating
Insane.
to me.
Yeah. Darth Del Rio. If that tease at the end was what it hinted at, I think it would make an excellent HasLab for Hasbro to make. So, number one, yes, it was 1000% what it teased at. That was, in fact, the Mythosaur. Number two, yeah, Hasbro, get on it. Start making it. Get it out there. We need it. Moving on. Blue Jedi. Blue
I
Jedi
concur.
said, "Great episode. Very different in tone from last week, which is what this show does so well. Lots of spoken lore exposition and unspoken character stuff going on here. Very well directed. Great nods to another franchise that fits perfectly here. Loved it." Now, the stuff going on, or what the part here, unspoken character stuff. That's what I was trying to say. The unspoken character stuff going on here. When I read that, because you pointed it out, Zach, the first thing that I thought of was Bo-Katan pushing Grogu to the side. Like
Oh,
that moment still, now that you've pointed that out, is so good. So good.
so good. No words. Just
Yeah.
and I love how Grogu's just like, all right,
I
you
know,
got it.
right?
Like you got it.
Yeah. But clearly Grogu can take these things out. We kind of skipped over the fact
Yeah,
that
but
he
I
did
just thought
that,
it was
but
funny that he don't even
He's like, yeah,
just
you
like,
got this. I'll take
yeah,
a break.
it's like the
I'll chill.
Homer going into the grass meme is what that is. I
By
love
the way,
it.
we didn't mention Grogu didn't fall asleep after using the Force. Proud of him.
A lot of force. A lot of
Proud
force.
of him. Yeah, for sure. But
And it got a rise, or it got a, I didn't say it got a rise. It got a cheer out of my wife when he like that thing that we
yeah,
saw in the trailer. Like
uh-huh.
she was like, "Yeah, come on."
Let's go. That's
And I
awesome.
was like, "Hey, there we go."
That's awesome. Well, Blue Jedi, thank you so much. I believe that's the second week in a row that you have offered a fantastic review for us to discuss. A lot of great things in there. Lynn Altomari said the following: "What a great episode. We'll have to watch again because so much was going on. I do have to say I hate spiders on TV shows, be they ice ones or droids." Yeah, the ice ones from season 2.
Fair enough.
I definitely didn't like those.
Oh,
This
they
one
creep me
I
out.
didn't. The droid one I definitely had an eerie feeling, but I didn't get like an icky feeling this go around.
Same.
But anyway,
Still
yeah,
icky.
great episode for sure. Jessica Sitton again. So much to unpack. I was in awe of the details of Mandalore. Won't say more so I don't spoil it, but wow. Yeah, there was so much to unpack in this one, and kind of going back to what Lynn said, this is an episode that I believe you got to watch multiple times. 2 at the minimum, 3, 4, ideal, probably. I haven't even done 3 or 4 yet. I probably need to.
Especially if you're deep in the lore like you or others. Like this is thick with lore.
Is, for sure. Well, and luckily, if you're listening at this point, you've heard a great breakdown, so maybe you don't need to go back and watch it again, right? So I take that back. You don't. There's no need. There's no need.
We got
but you should. But you should.
Yeah, do it.
All right, Jessica Sitton with another one. Here we go. Appreciate it, Jessica. Wasn't sure how I felt at the beginning, but then as the episode progressed, the intensity increased, and we got the awesomeness back that was lacking a little in the season opener. Great episode. That seems to line up almost exactly with what you were saying, Zach, as far as the way that once Bo-Katan shows up, pew, it just shoots off.
Yeah, it was a little clunky, a little boring at the beginning. It was a little ho-hum, and then once Grogu like goes on his own. Oh, and I forgot to talk about this. So if you're still around, appreciate you. Grogu moving around looked great, like on his own, where he's like walking and flipping. Because the flipping can look kind of goofy sometimes. Like when he tossed to Grief, dude. I think I sent you that meme.
It's already getting memed for sure.
Oh my god, where he just chucks him, like hilarious to me. But I thought he looked good flipping around this time. I thought he looked really good walking around and like kind of peeking over the corners and stuff. And I love that he didn't save Din. I love that too.
Yeah,
well, that's always kind of been a trope that like, oh, he'll use the Force, save him, whatever. But this time it doesn't work.
Yeah, so. I think we hear the pattering of Grogu's feet too when he's walking toward.
We do.
Din. Fantastic.
I think Taylor actually chuckled.
So
she loves Grogu. If you hadn't picked that up, she's like everybody. Yeah, I was gonna say she's like everybody. Like Grogu's her thing, and so like he's like walking along, like kind of. She like chuckled. She was like, "Oh, look at his little feet." I was like, "Yeah, I know. They got you."
For sure. Money grab for sure, but it's
they got me too. That's fine.
Well-earned one. All right, we also have 2 Discord submissions. So if you are interested in joining our Discord, that link is down in the description. This gives you an opportunity with no character limitations as far as getting submissions in. So there's a great opportunity to get on there. Speederbike Tim says the following: my thoughts are that Bo-Katan will realize most of what she thought were fables is actually fact, and she will join Din Djarin and help reunite Mandalore. My only questions at this point are, who will ultimately yield the Darksaber and how will the armorer react, especially after the realization that Mandalore is not poisoned and Din and Bo are working together. Okay, there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, I'm interested to see how the armor reacts to the proof as far as Din Djarin, going into the waters. Like, is Bo-Katan going to be the proof? And if Bo-Katan is the proof, why would the armorer trust her? Because there's some heat there. There's some beef for sure, which could set up a great plot point, I might add. So maybe that is what they go for. Din Djarin would be quite the guy to think that bringing Bo-Katan would be a good idea, though. He's basically saying, all right, Here you go, the armor. Duke it out with Bo-Katan. Let's figure out which one of you's better.
Dude, the armor is so sick. I love the armor.
Yeah?
Like, she hasn't
Yeah.
done much in the sense of like stuff, but she's
Mhm.
awesome. I think it's a girl, right?
Yes. Yeah.
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 Like, she is awesome. I love the armor. Just
Yeah,
the lore, the background of her, this
Mhm.
misty, mystical, like, what I don't want to call her like judge, jury, executioner, but like that's kind of how she is. Like,
Yeah.
she don't play no games.
Hey,
You know what I
she
mean?
got the hammer.
She makes that stuff too, boy. She's
Yeah, she
good.
does.
But
All right.
the last part there where he says, the armor react, didn't even consider that. Fascinated by that immediately. But then like her working together, Bo and
And
Din
Din,
working together. That's what I was talking about.
you think
Who's
so?
to say they can't rule together, right?
Okay,
I don't
so
know how
that was
Mandalore works,
that
but
was a question that I was going to pose you. If you had to put money on who's going to be the Mandalore the Great, Bo-Katan or Din Djarin, who you putting money on today,
Din.
right now?
Din.
Din Djarin. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I had to put money on it, he's on the poster.
Right.
I
True.
But I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think it's going to be both.
Yeah.
Or her. Like I don't I don't think that's how it's going to play out. But
Yeah. Yeah.
if I had to,
I would
like,
love
if you're
like
like,
a
we got to get on FanDuel and you got to bet this,
yeah.
that's what I would do. But
Okay. I would
don't know. What do
love
you
a
think?
co-ruling. That idea is fascinating to me.
And my
It's
thought would
almost
be
like what
he would wield the dark saber, she would wield the mythosaur,
Yeah.
or vice versa.
yeah.
And then,
or
oh
or
wow,
you
they're
can flip-flop back and
equals.
forward whenever.
Yeah, but I just mean like theoretically
Yeah,
in
no,
the
no, I got you.
Mandalore
I got you.
mind, like
It's
she would
almost
wield the
like
dark saber, he would have the mythosaur. Whoa,
yeah.
they're both worthy of our praise.
Mhm.
They should both rule. That's how I envision this going, but I don't know.
You know, it's again, I'm bringing this franchise up. It's what Game of Thrones should have done with Jon Snow and
Bingo.
Daenerys. And I
Bingo.
think maybe
Spoiler alert.
Favreau and Filoni. Oh crap! Oops. Spoilers. But
You
yes.
didn't say nothing too bad.
Anyway, I didn't say much.
Yeah.
Maybe the whole series, but Favreau and Filoni
everybody's
know
seen it.
that's what people wanted in Game of Thrones. I think, and
Yeah. Well,
maybe this is their opportunity to kind of do that in their own way,
and not even fan servicey, just like
It just makes
story wise,
sense.
like
Just
it
makes
makes sense that they would want to be together. And for everything I said earlier about Din, I don't think he means to rule these people. He's
Yeah.
just a good dude in the sense of like he follows his rules and follows the creed.
Very
So
much so like Jon Snow, I might add.
he's exactly like Jon Snow. And that's why I say I don't think he's going to end ruling. Because
Yeah.
like he doesn't want it. I don't want the crown or whatever Jon Snow says.
I don't
like,
want
I don't
it.
I don't want it. I don't want it. I don't want
Oh
it.
man. All right,
But-
we got one more Discord submission here from Melanie. A few bullet points actually. This was an amazing episode. The ongoing Mandalorian lore, sets, creatures, and effects were fantastic. 1000% with that. I really appreciated how Din said our people to Grogu when referring to Mandalorians because he is one also. That was touching. Okay, that was something that we talked
There
about
you go.
earlier. I'm glad
Yep,
we got some
you called that.
confirmation on that. Appreciate that, Melanie. I love how Grogu is evolving. He is so smart and did a great job throughout the whole episode and with enabling Din's rescue. Absolutely. We've definitely touched on that. I think it's
Right. Huge.
beside the Mythosaur reveal, it's definitely probably the one of the best moments of this episode. Arguably one of the best moments of the show so far, just because
100%
it's
agree.
great to see Grogu get that kind of
Not
action.
just being his little blob or his little.
For sure. For
Huge.
sure. And then, of course, Melanie with this last one, Bo-Katan, awesome. Bo-Katan kills it. Bo-Katan is the character of the week for me. Last week, the character of the week was Grogu. Grogu was the winner of last week's episode, in my opinion. Bo takes this one by a landslide. Massive margin. Katie Sackhoff is born to play Bo-Katan. Voiced her in the Clone Wars, voiced her in Rebels. So glad they made that decision. Of course, we've had so many Clone Wars characters kind of make that switch, or animation characters make that switch to live action, and they've decided to potentially change who's doing it. Most notably, Rosario Dawson with Ahsoka.
Shoot, I mean, they did it with Last of Us. We've seen that already in HBO. Like
for
they're
sure.
all different.
Absolutely.
But
so glad they stuck with the same one with Bo-Katan, because I can't imagine anyone else in this role, honestly.
I mean, yeah, I think she's good. I've never seen her in anything else.
I think she's
Sometimes,
in like Battlestar, is it? What is that?
sometimes she
Battlestar
comes off
Galactica?
as like, this is me being so nitpicky here.
Okay, here
But
we
if
go.
you're still sticking around, like she comes off a little over actory
Okay.
to me. Like she
Okay.
kind of like is very just dramatic about everything.
Okay.
However, I say that to say
Yeah.
that's why we watched the episode more than once, because the more I see of her, the more I realize that's the character.
Yes.
She is cocky.
And that's
Like,
what I was going to say.
Like
Like,
she is that way.
I
So
think-
like it makes me feel better about like, oh no, that's just how she is.
I think that doesn't get noticed by me because that fits with how Bo-Katan was in the Clone Wars.
Sure.
And
In
so,
the animation,
in
they're
my
going to be
mind,
dramatic.
In
right?
my mind, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, she's portraying this character so perfectly, because this matches that Clone Wars character that we initially fell in love with. So that's probably why it doesn't even stick out to me at all. So yeah, probably admittedly,
It's
as
a good
far as
call
just
out.
an acting, I guess,
Like
portrayal.
she's just so aggressive. Like with the first words we hear from her, of where she's like, "Let's teach him a lesson, or get rid of him once for all."
Yeah, that's Bo-Katan for sure. That screams Bo-Katan.
Yeah, like that's
to me.
aggressive and dramatic for no reason.
Yeah.
But I understand, like that's the character, so I
Yeah.
get it now. I get it.
Absolutely.
That was just my initial take, but I love this episode, dude. I thought it was great.
It was.
If more episodes are like this, we're gonna have one heck of a season.
Mhm.
I love it so much. It felt so Star Warsy.
Yes,
It
it
felt
did.
so good. And for the first time in a long time, for Star Wars, well, that's not true. Andor was incredible.
Yeah, Andor was great.
But where I was going with that is like it feels like event TV again for Star Wars.
It does.
Like I feel like I sit down with my wife, we watch Mandalorian.
Lighthearted, great TV, just to make it
Correct.
different from Andor.
Where Last of Us, so we watch that on Sundays, and this comes out on Wednesdays. So Sundays, I'm gonna cry my eyes out because it's heavy and it's
Put in
serious
depression mode.
and it's depressed and it's just heavy.
Yeah.
And then on Wednesdays, I get this fun,
Yeah.
sci-fi, action, crazy, lore,
Wild.
like yeah, just like so fun. And I love that. It makes me love the show more, and the fact that Pedro is the freaking dude in both is just so cool.
Yeah, he's the
Good for
face.
him.
He's the face
for
of
him.
streaming right now.
Good for him, man.
All right, man. Well, it's time for us to get out of here. We definitely
Yeah.
dove deep into this one. Thank you so much for checking out this podcast episode. If you're still listening and you haven't subscribed at this point, what are you doing? Smash that subscribe button.
Do it.
Greatly appreciate it. Cannot wait to continue to cover this season. Again, I'll remind you, each and every single Friday, we've got a companion podcast releasing, breaking down the latest episode of The Mandalorian Season 3. And I have heard rumors and seen reports that Episode 3 is 56 minutes long.
I don't know how to do it. Yeah.
So
It's long.
there's going to be a lot to break down and dissect in next week's podcast episode. So make sure you join Clan Mando Talk and come back to us next week. Follow us on Twitter and TikTok at Mando Talk. Those are the two main ones. If you want to have more one-on-one conversation, like I already alluded to, join the Discord. Click that link down in the description. Zach, thank you so much for being on. Can't wait to have you back.
Thanks for having me.
I mean, are we still planning on next week, right?
I'll be back, baby.
Next
I'm back.
week.
Next week.
Zach's going to be helping me break down that 56-minute goodies of The Mandalorian. Maybe we'll see the Mythosaur, maybe not. But regardless, we're going to have a great time. And until then, as always, we have spoken.